The morning sun cast long shadows across the mining colony of New Hanyul as Kong Ho adjusted his research equipment. He had been studying the planet Ashron for 3 years now, and every day brought new discoveries. The crystal formations here were unlike anything found on Earth, humming with strange energy that made his instruments dance with readings. But today something felt different. Kong Ho looked up from his screens toward the northern mountains where the great crystal caves lay. Hidden. Somewhere in those caves lived Nari, the massive dragon-like being that had both fascinated and terrified the human colonists since their arrival. Most people avoided the mountains, but Kong Ho had spent months earning the ancient creature's trust. "Sir, are you getting these readings too?" asked June, his research assistant, pointing at the energy scanners with a worried expression. Kang Ho frowned at the displays. The harmonic frequencies from the crystal caves were fluctuating wildly, something he had never seen before. The patterns looked almost like a distress signal, but that was impossible. Nari had always been calm and peaceful in their previous encounters. "Pack the portable equipment," Kong Ho told June. "We need to check on her." The journey to the crystal caves took 2 hours by hoverbike. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the air grew thinner and the crystal formations became more dense. These crystals were what made Ashron so valuable to the mining companies. But they also served another purpose that few humans understood. Kong Ho had discovered the truth about Nari 6 months ago. The great dragon was not just living in the cave, she was guarding something precious. Deep within the largest crystal chamber lay 5 enormous eggs, each one the size of a small vehicle. Nari had been protecting them for over 2 centuries, waiting for the right conditions for them to hatch. The eggs needed the specific harmonic frequencies that only Ashron's crystals could produce. Without these sounds, the baby dragons inside would never develop properly. It was a delicate process that required perfect timing and protection from any outside interference. As Kong Ho approached the cave entrance, he could hear Nari's deep, rumbling voice echoing from within. But this was not the calm, musical tone he had grown accustomed to. This was the sound of fear. Nari called out as he entered the cave. "Are you all right?" The great dragon turned toward him, her golden eyes reflecting the crystal light. She was beautiful in her alien way, with scales that shifted color like oil on water and wings that could span the width of the entire cave. But today, those eyes held a terror that made Kong Ho's heart race. "Kong Ho," she said, her voice like distant thunder. "They have found me." "Who has found you?" Nari's massive head lowered until she was eye level with the human scientist. "The Vorthok, the destroyers of my kind. They have tracked me across the galaxy, and now they come to Ashron." Kong Ho had heard whispers of the Vorthok in his research, of galactic history. They were a parasitic species that fed on the life essence of dragonkind. For thousands of years, they had hunted dragons across the stars, driving them to near extinction. Ari was one of the last survivors of her species. "How do you know they're coming?" Kong Ho asked. "I can feel them," Nari replied, her voice heavy, with ancient sadness. "Their hunger calls to me across the void. They will arrive within days, perhaps hours. And when they do, I must choose." She gestured with one massive claw toward the chamber where her eggs rested. The 5 shells glowed softly in the crystal light, still months away from hatching. They were beautiful and innocent, completely helpless. "I cannot defend my children and fight the Vorthok at the same time," Nari continued. "If I stay to guard the eggs, the Vorthok will overwhelm me and consume both me and my offspring. If I leave to draw them away, my children will die without the protection they need." Kong Ho stared at the eggs, understanding the horrible choice Nari faced. These were not just her children. They were the future of her entire species. If they died, the dragons would be extinct forever. "There has to be another way," he said. Nari's laugh was bitter. "For 200 years, I have sought another way. The Vorthok are relentless. They will not stop until every dragon in the galaxy is dead. My only hope was to hide long enough for my children to hatch and grow strong, but time has run out." As if summoned by her words, Kong Ho's communication device began beeping urgently. He answered it to find Daewon, the colony leader, on the other end. "Kong Ho, we have a problem." Our orbital sensors are detecting multiple ships approaching the system. They're not responding to our signals, and their design doesn't match any known human or friendly alien vessels. Kang Ho looked at Nari, who nodded grimly. The Vorthok, he whispered into the communicator. What did you say? Daewon asked. Commander, I need you to listen carefully. The ships approaching us are called the Vorthok. They're here to hunt Nari and her children. This is not a human conflict, but it's about to become our problem. There was silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Daewon spoke. How long do we have? Not long, Kang Ho replied, looking at Nari's fearful expression. Maybe hours, maybe less. Understood. Return to the colony immediately. We need to discuss this with the council. As Kang Ho ended the call, he turned back to Nari. We won't abandon you, he said firmly. There are good people in our colony. People who understand that protecting children is more important than staying safe. Nari's eyes widened. You would risk your lives for my offspring, but they are not your kind. That doesn't matter, Kang Ho replied. You've lived peacefully beside us for years. You've never threatened us or demanded anything from us. But you're a mother trying to protect her children. It's something every human can understand. For the first time since his arrival, Nari's expression softened. Your species continues to surprise me, Kang Ho, but the Vorthok are not like the predators of your world. They're ancient and cunning and filled with hunger that cannot be satisfied. They have destroyed civilizations far more powerful than your small colony. Maybe so, Kang Ho said as he began packing his equipment. But they've never faced humans before. They've certainly never faced humans who are fighting to protect someone else's children. As he prepared to leave, Kang Ho took one last look at the eggs. In a few hours, their fate would be decided. Either they would hatch in safety surrounded by their mother's love, or they would die as the last hope of their species. But if Kang Ho had learned anything about humanity in his 43 years of life, it was that people could do extraordinary things when they decided to protect the innocent. The Vorthok were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The war for Ashran was about to begin. The colony council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as Kang Ho finished his report. Around the oval table sat 15 of New Hanyul's most important citizens, their faces showing everything from fear to confusion to anger. The holographic display above the table showed the approaching Vorthok ships, dark shapes moving steadily toward their peaceful world. So let me understand this correctly, said Councilmember Park, his voice tight with disbelief. These alien ships are coming here to hunt our dragon neighbor, and you want us to get involved in their war? Kang Ho nodded. That's exactly what I'm saying. But this isn't just about Nari anymore. The Vorthok won't stop with her. Once they're finished with the dragons, they'll turn their attention to us. That's speculation, interrupted Councilmember Lee, slamming her hand on the table. We have families here, children. We can't risk their lives based on guesswork. Colony leader Daewon raised his hand for silence. At 55, he was a former military commander who had led the original settlement mission to Ashran. His weathered face showed the weight of leadership as he considered the situation. Kang Ho, he said quietly, in your 3 years of studying Nari, has she ever shown aggression toward humans? Never, Kang Ho replied immediately. She's been curious about us, sometimes even helpful. Remember when the landslide blocked the eastern mining tunnels? She cleared the debris in one afternoon. And when the Yamamoto children got lost in the crystal maze, she guided them back to safety. But she's still an alien, protested Councilmember Kim. We don't know what she's really thinking. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? Because I've seen her eggs, Kang Ho said, his voice growing passionate. I've watched her tend to them with the same care any mother shows her children. She sings to them, keeps them warm, adjusts the crystal frequencies to help them grow. She's not a monster or a threat. She's a mother trying to protect her babies. The room fell silent. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Everyone in the colony was a parent or had been raised by loving parents. The idea of protecting children resonated deeply. Even if that's true, said Councilmember Park, what can we possibly do against an alien invasion fleet? We're a mining colony, not a military base. Before anyone could answer, the chamber doors opened, and Yuna strode in. The military engineer was tall and confident. with short black hair and calloused hands that spoke of years working with weapons and machines. She had been monitoring the approaching ships from the colony's defense center. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I have information you need to hear." Daewon gestured for her to continue. "I've been analyzing the Vorthok ships," Yuna said, activating her own holographic display. "They're old, really old. Their technology is at least 2 centuries behind ours. They rely on numbers and fear rather than superior firepower." "What does that mean for us?" asked Councilmember Lee. "It means we can fight them," Yuna replied. "Our defense systems are more advanced than anything they've seen. They've been hunting dragons for thousands of years, but they've never faced human military technology." "You're talking about war," Councilmember Kim said, his voice heavy with concern. "People will die. People will die anyway if we do nothing," Yuna countered. "The Vorthok don't just hunt dragons. They strip planets bare of resources, they enslave, or kill anyone who gets in their way. Even if we stay neutral, they'll see us as a threat once they're finished with Nari." Kong Ho stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Can I tell you all something? Something personal?" The room quieted. "I have 2 children back on Earth," he said. "A daughter who's 8 and a son who's 6. I came to Ashran to study alien life so I could give them a better future. Every day I'm here, I miss them more than I can express." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "When I saw Nari's eggs, when I understood what they meant to her, I saw my own children. I saw every child who's ever needed protection. I realized that being a parent isn't about biology or species. It's about love and sacrifice, and the willingness to fight for those who can't fight for themselves." Several council members nodded slowly. Councilmember Park, who had 3 children of his own, looked down at his hands. "Nari has been our neighbor for years," Kong Ho continued. "She's never asked us for anything. She's never threatened us or demanded tribute. She's just been a quiet guardian, watching over her unborn children and waiting for them to hatch. She's facing extinction, and we have the power to help her. But at what cost?" asked Councilmember Lee. "At the cost of doing what's right," Daewon said quietly. Everyone turned to look at the colony leader. "I've been listening to this debate, and I keep coming back to one question. What kind of people are we if we can help save innocent lives and choose not to?" "We're practical people," Councilmember Kim replied. "We're survivors." "No," said a new voice from the back of the room. "We're human." Everyone turned to see Myra, the colony's young medic, standing in the doorway. She was only 25, but her work with both human and alien biology had earned her respect throughout the colony. "I've been monitoring the communications from the approaching ships," she said. "The Vorthok are broadcasting their intentions. They're not just coming for Nari. They're coming to claim this entire planet as their hunting ground. They see the crystal formations as perfect nurseries for their own young." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. "That's right," Mira continued. "We'll let them destroy Nari and her eggs. They'll stay here permanently. Our mining operations will be shut down. Our families will be relocated or worse. This isn't about choosing sides in an alien war. This is about defending our home." Daewon stood up slowly. "I call for a vote. All in favor of offering military assistance to Nari in defense of her offspring and our colony?" One by one, hands rose around the table. First Daewon, then Kong Ho, then Yuna and Myra. Councilmember Park raised his hand with a sigh. Councilmember Lee followed reluctantly. Even Councilmember Kim eventually voted yes. The final count was 12 in favor, 3 against. "The motion passes," Daewon announced. "We stand with Nari." As the council members filed out to begin preparations, Kang Ho caught Yuna's arm. "Can we really win this?" Yuna's expression was serious but determined. The Vorthok had been hunting isolated dragons for centuries. They've never faced a coordinated defense by a technological species. "We have advantages they can't imagine, such as human ingenuity," she said with a slight smile. "The ability to think outside the box. And something else the Vorthok have. Never encountered before? What's that? A species that fights harder for someone else's children than for their own interests." As Kang Ho prepared to return to the mountains to give Nari the news, he felt a surge of pride in his fellow colonists. They were about to face the unknown for the sake of 5 unborn dragons. they had never seen, it was the most human thing they could do. The first Vorthok ship broke through Ashron's atmosphere just as the sun began to set. Taman watched from his fighter cockpit as the alien vessel descended like a falling star, its black hull absorbing the dying light. Behind it came 6 more ships, each one the size of a small city. "All units, this is Control," came Daewon's voice through the communication system. "The enemy has arrived. Execute Defensive Plan Alpha." From his position high above the crystal caves, Taman could see the entire battlefield. The human colonists had spent the last 18 hours preparing for this moment. Energy barriers flickered to life around the mountain peaks. Weapon platforms emerged from hidden positions among the crystal formations. The peaceful mining colony had transformed into a fortress. "Nari, can you hear me?" Kang Ho's voice crackled through the radio from inside the caves. "I hear you, friend, Kang Ho," came the dragon's deep reply. "The Vorthok ships are larger than I expected. They have brought an entire hunting pack." "How many?" "Perhaps 200 warriors. They are confident in their victory." Yuna's voice joined the conversation from the main command bunker. 200 against 43 humans and 1 dragon. "I've seen worse odds." "Have you really?" asked Haewon, the colony's security chief, from his position at the eastern defense point. "No," Yuna admitted. "But today seems like a good day." To start, the Vorthok ships landed in a rough circle around the base of the mountain. Up close, they looked even more threatening. Their hulls were covered in organic growths that pulsed with sick green light. Strange sounds echoed from within. As the aliens prepared for battle, "First contact in 30 seconds, reported Sujin from the communications center. "The Vorthok are powering up their weapons." Tamin gripped his controls tighter. He had flown mining equipment for most of his career, but the colony's small. Defense Force had trained him on combat maneuvers. The fighter he piloted was built for speed and precision, not heavy combat, but it would have to do. "Remember the plan?" Daewon's voice came through clearly. "We're not trying to destroy them all. We just need to keep them away from the eggs until Nari's children can hatch." "How long is that?" asked Mira from the medical station. "Too long," Nari replied grimly. "The eggs will not be ready for at least 3 more months." The first Vorthok warriors emerged from their ships, and the humans got their first look at the enemy. The aliens were tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow in the darkness. Their limbs were too long and bent at strange angles. Disturbing were their faces, which had no eyes, but instead featured a large mouth filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth. "They're blind," Kang Ho observed. "That's why they rely on other senses." "Good to know," Yuna said. "All units, prepare for contact. Remember, they hunt by sound and smell. Use that against them." The Vorthok began moving up the mountain in groups of 10. They moved with disturbing grace, their long limbs carrying them over rocks and crystal formations without effort. As they climbed, they made clicking sounds with their tongues, using echolocation to navigate. "Wait for my signal," Yuna commanded. "Let them get closer." The first group of Vorthok reached the outer defense perimeter. They paused, clicking rapidly as they sensed the energy barriers. One of them extended a clawed hand toward the barrier and immediately jerked back as electricity sparked across its fingers. "Now," Yuna ordered. The mountain erupted in light and sound as the human weapons opened fire. Energy beams lanced down from hidden positions, striking the Vorthok with precise accuracy. Several aliens fell immediately, their bodies smoking from the impacts. But the Vorthok adapted quickly.
Ow.
They scattered, using the crystal formations as cover while they returned fire with their own weapons. These were biological guns that fired acidic projectiles capable of melting through metal. "They're learning our positions," Haewon reported as acid splashed against his bunker. "We need to move." "Negative," Yuna replied. "Taman, you're up." The pilot dove his fighter toward the largest group of Vorthok, his weapons blazing. The aliens had never encountered aerial attack before, and several were caught in the open. But as Taman pulled up for another pass, one of the enemy ships launched a swarm of flying creatures. "I've got company," Timon reported as the bat-like aliens surrounded his fighter. These things are fast. Use the crystals. Narice's voice boomed from the caves. The formations can amplify your weapons. Timon didn't fully understand what she meant, but he flew toward the nearest crystal cluster. As his energy beams passed through the transparent formations, they split into dozens of smaller beams that struck the flying creatures with devastating effect. Incredible, breathed Sujin. The crystals are acting like prisms, multiplying our firepower. All units, redirect fire through the crystal formations, Yuna ordered. Use Neris' gift. The tide of battle began to turn. Human weapons amplified. By the planet's natural crystals proved far more effective than the Vorthok had expected. The aliens found themselves outmatched by technology they had never encountered before, but the Vorthok had one more surprise. The largest ship opened its belly and released a creature that made the warriors look small. It was the size of a building, with armor-like skin and claws that could tear through solid rock. "What is that thing?" Kong Ho asked in horror. "A Vorthok. Battle beast," Nari replied, her voice heavy with old fear. "They use them to break through fortified positions. I have seen them destroy entire cities." The monster began climbing the mountain, its massive claws leaving deep gouges in the stone. The human weapons barely scratched its thick hide. "We need bigger guns," Yuna muttered. "No," came Nari's voice. "We need harmony." "What do you mean?" "The crystals respond to specific frequencies. If we can create the right harmonic pattern, we can turn the entire mountain into a weapon." Mira's voice crackled through the radio. "I'm reading massive energy buildups in the crystal formations. Whatever you're thinking, Nari, it's affecting the entire mountain." "The process is dangerous," Nari warned. "If we miscalculate, we could destroy everything, including my eggs. And if we do nothing, the Vorthok will destroy them anyway," Kong Ho pointed out. The battle beast was halfway up the mountain now, its roars echoing through the caves. More Vorthok warriors followed behind it, regrouping for a final assault. "I need someone to work with me," Nari said. "Someone who understands both human technology and my people's knowledge of the crystals." "I'll do it," Myra said without hesitation. "Absolutely." "Not," Daewon replied. "You're too valuable to risk." "With respect, Commander, I'm the only one here with xenobiology training. I know more about dragon physiology than anyone except Kong Ho, and he's needed to coordinate the defense." "The medic is right," Nari agreed, "but she must come to me quickly." The Vorthok are almost at the inner caves. As Mira made her way through the tunnels toward Nara's chamber, the battle above intensified. The Vorthok battle beast had reached the main defense line and was tearing through the energy barriers like paper. "Hold your positions," Yuna commanded, but her voice betrayed her worry. "Help is coming." Deep in the crystal caves, Mira reached Nari's chamber and gasped at what she saw. The dragon was glowing with internal light, her scales shifting through every color of the spectrum. The eggs behind her pulsed with the same rhythm as her heartbeat. "Are you ready, young healer?" Nari asked. Mira nodded, though her hands were shaking. "What do you need me to do?" "Place your hands on the central crystal. I will guide the harmonic frequencies, but I need someone with precise control to fine-tune the resonance." As Mira approached the massive crystal formation, she could feel the energy building around her. The entire mountain was humming now, a sound that seemed to come from the planet itself. "Together," Nari said. "For the children. For the children." Mira agreed and pressed her palms against the crystal. The mountain began to sing. The crystal, under Myra's hands, felt alive. Energy pulsed through it like a heartbeat, growing stronger with each passing second. Beside her, Nari's massive form glowed with increasing intensity, her scales shifting from gold to silver to deep blue as she channeled power into the mountain's crystal network. "I can feel the harmonics building," Mira said, her voice tight with concentration. "The frequency is climbing toward something big," yes, Nari replied, her voice now carrying strange musical tones. "The crystals are awakening. They have slept for centuries, but now they remember their purpose." Outside the cave, the battle was reaching its climax. The Vorthok battle beast had broken through the outer defenses and was climbing toward the main entrance. Its massive claws left deep gouges in the stone as it roared its hunger for dragon blood. "We need that weapon now," Yuna's voice crackled through the radio. "The beast is almost at the cave entrance." "How much longer?" Daewon asked from the command center. "The harmonics need to reach perfect resonance," Nari explained. "If we trigger the weapon too early, it will not have enough power to destroy the entire Vorthok fleet." Mira could feel the crystal growing warm under her hands. The energy was building to dangerous levels. Around the chamber, smaller crystals began to crack from the strain. "Nari, I don't think the crystals can handle much more power," she warned. "They must," the dragon replied. "This is our only chance." Through the cave entrance, they could hear the battle beast getting closer. Its roars echoed through the tunnels, accompanied by the sound of claws scraping against stone. The Vorthok warriors were close behind, their clicking calls growing louder. "Contact at the main entrance," Haewon reported. "The beast is breaking through. All units fall back to secondary positions," Yuna ordered. "Keep them away from the egg chamber." Sujin's voice joined the conversation from the communications center. "The harmonic readings are off the charts. Whatever you're doing down there, it's affecting the entire mountain range." "Good," Nari said. "The weapon must encompass all of Ashron's crystal formations to work properly." Myra felt a sudden shift in the energy flow. The crystal under her hands began to pulse with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. It was as if the mountain itself was coming alive. "Something's happening," she said. "The frequency is stabilizing." "Perfect harmony," Nari confirmed. "The crystals are now synchronized across the entire planet. But to trigger the weapon, I must give more of myself than ever before." "What do you mean?" "I must channel my own life force into the crystal network. It is the only way to generate enough power to destroy the Vorthok ships." Myra's eyes widened. "That could kill you?" "Perhaps," Nari agreed calmly. "But if I do nothing, my children will certainly die. And so will your people." The battle beast's roar suddenly echoed through the chamber as it reached the inner caves. Through the tunnel entrance, Mira could see its massive form blocking out the light. Behind it, dozens of Vorthok warriors prepared for the final assault. "They're here," she whispered. "Then it is time," Nari said. "Young healer, when I begin the final sequence, you must maintain the harmonic balance. If the frequency shifts even slightly, the weapon will fail." "I understand. And if I do not survive this, you must tell your people that I died grateful for their friendship. No dragon has ever had such allies." Before Mira could respond, Nari began to glow with blinding intensity. The dragon's entire body became a conduit for energy as she poured her life force into the crystal network. The mountain began to shake as power flowed through every crystal formation on the planet. "Oh, Nari," commanded. Myra pressed her hands firmly against the crystal and focused all her concentration on maintaining the harmonic frequency. The energy flowing through her was incredible, like holding on to lightning while standing in an earthquake. The effect was immediate. Every crystal on Ashron began to sing in perfect harmony, creating a sound that was both beautiful and terrible. The harmonic waves spread outward from the mountain, covering the entire planet in a web of resonant energy. The Vorthok battle beast stopped its advance and began to convulse. The harmonic frequencies were disrupting its nervous system, causing it to lose control of its massive limbs. Behind it, the Vorthok warriors were suffering the same fate, their clicking calls turning into screams of pain. "It's working," Taemin reported from his fighter. "The Vorthok are falling back." But the real target was the ships. As the harmonic waves reached the Vorthok fleet, the organic components of their vessels began to break down. The aliens had built their technology around living materials, and those materials could not survive the planet-wide harmonic assault. "The ships are breaking apart," Sujin announced excitedly. "Whatever you're doing, it's tearing them apart from the inside." One by one, the Vorthok vessels began to collapse. Their organic hulls dissolved like melting wax, exposing the creatures. Inside 2 Ashran's atmosphere, the aliens who had seemed so terrifying just moments before now fled in panic toward their dying ships. "The harmonics are spreading beyond the planet," Myra observed, watching her instruments. "The waves are following the Vorthok ships into space, Nari said, her voice growing weaker. Any ship that carries Vorthok DNA will be destroyed. It will never threaten my children again. The battle beast collapsed with a final roar, its massive body crushing several fleeing Vorthok warriors. Around the mountain, the surviving aliens were retreating in complete disorder, their hunting pack broken and defeated. All enemy forces are withdrawing, Yuna reported. The Vorthok fleet is completely destroyed. But the victory came with a price. Nari's glow was fading rapidly, and her massive form was beginning to collapse. The effort of channeling so much energy had drained her life force to dangerous levels. Nari Mira called out in alarm. Your vital signs are dropping. It is done, the dragon whispered. My children are safe. Your people are safe. That is enough. No, Mira said firmly. You're not dying on my watch. The young medic began working frantically with her equipment, trying to stabilize Nari's condition. The dragon's heartbeat was slowing, but she was still alive. The harmonic energy is still flowing through the crystal network, Mira realized. Maybe I can reverse the process, draw energy back to you instead of away. Dangerous, Nari warned weakly. Could damage the eggs. The eggs are stronger than you think, Mira replied. Trust me. Working quickly, Mira began to adjust the harmonic frequencies. Instead of channeling energy outward, she tried to draw it back toward Nari. The crystal under her hands grew warm again as the energy flow reversed. Slowly, Nari's breathing began to strengthen. Her heartbeat grew steadier. The dragon was going to survive. Incredible, Kong Ho said as he entered the chamber. The harmonic weapon worked perfectly. The entire Vorthok fleet is destroyed, and there are no survivors. How long was I unconscious? Nari asked weakly. You weren't unconscious, Mira replied. You were in a healing trance. Your body was repairing itself from the strain of channeling so much energy. And my eggs, safe and sound. In fact, the harmonic energy seems to have accelerated. Their development, they might hatch sooner than expected. Nari's eyes brightened with hope. Truly, your children will be born into a world free from the Vorthok threat. As the humans began to celebrate their victory, Nari looked at each of them with deep gratitude. I will never forget what you have done. You risked everything to save children who were not even your own kind. That's what makes us human, Kong Ho replied simply. We protect the innocent, no matter who they are. The battle for Ashran was over, but the real story was just beginning. 3 weeks after the battle, Kong Ho sat in the crystal chamber, watching over Nari as she recovered. The great dragon was still weak from her ordeal, but her condition improved each day. The harmonic weapon had saved them all, but it had taken a terrible toll on her body. The eggs are glowing brighter today, Mira observed as she checked her medical readings. I think they're responding to their mother's presence. Nari lifted her massive head to look at her unborn children. The 5 eggs sat in their crystal nest, each one now pulsing with soft light. The harmonic energy from the weapon had indeed accelerated their development.
Oh.
They know I am here, she said softly. They can feel my heartbeat through the crystal. Formations. How much longer until they hatch? Asked June, who had been helping with the daily monitoring. Soon, Nari replied. Perhaps days rather than months? The harmonic resonance changed everything. Over the past weeks, word of the battle had spread throughout the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of alien species had begun arriving at Ashran, all curious about the humans who had defeated the legendary Vorthok fleet. The small mining colony had become the center of galactic attention. Another ship just entered orbit, Sujin reported from the communications center. This one is from the Centauri Federation. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations. That's the 5th delegation this week, Daewon said with a tired sigh. I'm starting to think we need a bigger landing pad. They all want to know. The same thing, Yuna observed. How did a small human colony destroy an entire Vorthok hunting fleet? Because we had something the Vorthok never expected, Kong Ho replied. We had a reason to fight that was bigger than ourselves. As if summoned by their conversation, a new alarm sounded from the chamber's monitoring equipment. But this wasn't a warning of danger. This was the sound they had been waiting for. The eggs, Mira said excitedly. They're hatching. Everyone gathered around the crystal nest as the first egg began to crack. A thin line appeared along its surface, glowing with internal light. Then another line and another, until the entire shell was covered in a web of fractures. "Should we do something?" June asked nervously. "No," Nari said firmly. "This is their moment. They must break free on their own." The first egg split open with a sound like breaking glass. From within emerged a small dragon, no bigger than a house. Cat. Its scales were silver like moonlight, and its eyes were the same golden color as its mother's. "Beautiful," Myra whispered. The baby dragon looked around the chamber with obvious curiosity. When it saw Nari, it let out a small chirping sound and tried to fly toward her. Its wings were still too small to carry it, so it tumbled awkwardly through the air before landing safely on a soft crystal formation. "My daughter," Nari said with infinite tenderness.
"Oh."
"You are perfect." The second egg cracked open, revealing a dragon with scales of deep blue. This one was slightly larger than the first, and it managed to fly a short distance before landing. Near its sister, a son, Nari observed, strong and brave like his father. The third egg hatched to reveal another daughter, this one with scales that shifted color like her mother's. The fourth was a son with bronze-colored scales that gleamed like metal. And finally, the fifth egg opened to reveal the smallest dragon of all, with scales of pure white. "5 healthy children," Mira said, her voice filled with wonder. "At your species has a future, Nari." But something unexpected happened next. The baby dragons, instead of going immediately to their mother, began to explore the chamber. They seemed particularly interested in the humans, chirping and clicking at them in obvious communication attempts. "They're not afraid of us, Kong," Ho observed. "Why should they be?" Nari asked. "You protected them before they were even born. To them, you are family." The smallest dragon, the one with white scales, managed to fly over to Myra and landed on her shoulder. It nuzzled against her neck and made a sound that was almost like a purr. "I think she likes you," June said with a grin. "The feeling is mutual," Mira replied, gently stroking the baby dragon's scales. Over the following days, the colony adjusted to their new situation. The baby dragons were curious about everything and seemed to treat the entire settlement as their playground. They would fly around the buildings, investigate the mining equipment, and play with the human children. "They're learning our language," Sujin observed during one of her daily reports.
"Oh."
"The blue one tried to say hello to me yesterday. Now the bronze one helped me fix a broken crystal resonator," added Wubin from the mining department. "Like he understood exactly what I needed." "They are intelligent," Nari explained. "My people have always been quick learners. But these children are different. They're growing up with both dragon wisdom and human knowledge." As the weeks passed, more alien delegations arrived at Ashran. Each one wanted to study the humans who had accomplished what no other species had managed. The defeat of the Vorthok had become legend throughout the galaxy. "The Stellar Council wants to offer us membership," Day One announced during a colony meeting. "They're calling us the Protector species and want to establish a new galactic standard based on our actions." "What kind of standard?" asked Yuna. "They want to create something called the Human Protocol, a set of laws that require all member species to protect endangered children, regardless of their origins." "That sounds like a good idea," Kong Ho said. "But I think we need to be careful. Fame can be dangerous." "Agreed," Nari said. "But perhaps this is why fate brought us together. Your people have shown the galaxy that strength should be used to protect the weak, not to conquer them." One evening, as Kong Ho sat watching the baby dragons play in the crystal chamber, he received a message from Earth. It was from his wife, telling him that their children were proud of what he had done. "Daddy saved the dragon babies," his daughter had said. "When I grow up, I want to save dragon babies too." The message made him smile. His own children understood what he had learned on Ashran, that being human meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. "What are you thinking about?" Mira asked, joining him near the crystal formations. "The future," he replied. "These baby dragons will grow up knowing that humans and dragons can be friends. Will teach their own children the same lesson. Maybe we've started something important here, a new kind of cooperation between species. More than that, a new way of thinking about what it means to be civilized. As they watched, the 5 baby dragons settled down near their mother for the night. The white one, who had bonded with Mira, flew over to perch on her shoulder one more time before joining her siblings. "They're going to change the galaxy," Myra said softly. "They already have," Nari replied. "And so have all of you."
Outside the crystal caves.
The stars shone down on a world that had become a symbol of hope for countless species. But the battle for Ashran had ended, but the real victory was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the baby dragons first opened their eyes. The small creatures had grown rapidly, now the size of large dogs, and their intelligence amazed everyone in the colony. They could speak basic human words, understand complex instructions, and had even learned to help with simple tasks around the settlement. Kong Ho stood in the newly built council chamber, watching as representatives from 43 different alien species took their seats. The small mining colony had been transformed into something unprecedented. The first truly interspecies sanctuary in galactic history. "The Acheron protocols are now ready for final approval," announced Ambassador Krytek, a tall, crystalline being from the Andorian Republic. "All member species have agreed to the basic principles." Day One, now bearing the title of Sanctuary Director, stepped forward to address the assembly. "Before we proceed, I want to make one thing clear. These protocols exist because one mother was willing to sacrifice everything to protect her children, and because some humans decided that protecting innocent life was more important than staying safe." In the audience, Nari watched with pride as her children sat attentively among the human colonists. The baby dragons had become beloved members of the community, playing with human children and learning alongside them in the colony's new school. "The first principle of the Ashran protocols," Daewon continued, "is simple. Any species that can protect endangered children must do so, regardless of political boundaries or biological differences. The strong have a responsibility to guard the weak. The second principle is equality and protection. Human child, a dragon hatchling, a centauri infant, all deserve the same level of care and defense. The third principle is cooperation. No species should face extinction alone, while others have the power to help." As the voting began, Yuna sat with her engineering team, putting finishing touches on the sanctuary's new defense systems. The weapons were more advanced than anything the colony had possessed during the Vorthok attack, but they were designed for protection, not conquest. Another refugee ship just entered orbit, reported Taemin from the Flight Control Center. "One is carrying survivors from the Kepler system. Your son is going supernova." "How many?" asked Mira, who now served as the sanctuary's chief medical officer. 200 adults and 50 children, various species. "Prepare the Eastern Habitat domes," Myra ordered. "We'll need medical screening for all the children first." This had become routine over the past few months. Word of Ashran's sanctuary had spread throughout the galaxy, and desperate families from dozens of worlds had begun seeking refuge there. The colony that had once housed 300 humans now supported over 2,000 beings from 27 different species. "Vote is unanimous," Ambassador Krydak announced. "The Ashran protocols are now galactic law." The chamber erupted in sounds of approval, cheers, musical tones, clicking calls, and other expressions of joy from the various species present. But the loudest sounds came from the 5 young dragons, who had learned to roar in celebration. After the ceremony, Kong Ho found himself walking through the sanctuary's newest section, the Children's Quarter. Here, young beings from across the galaxy played together, learning from each other and forming friendships that would last lifetimes. "Uncle Kong Ho," called out a small voice. He turned to see Nari's youngest daughter, the white-scaled dragon. The colony had named Hope. She was playing with a group of human children and several young aliens. "Hello, Hope. Are you having fun?" "Yes, we're learning to fly together. Watch." The little dragon spread her wings and took off, followed by the human children wearing the new gravity assist suits that Yuna had designed. They soared around the dome in a complex pattern, laughing and calling to each other. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a familiar voice behind him. Kong Ho turned to see Nari approaching. The great dragon had fully recovered from her ordeal and was now the official guardian of the sanctuary. Her role was to protect all the children, regardless of species. "I never imagined it would grow this big," Kong Ho admitted. "Neither did I," Nari replied, "but perhaps that was the point. We started by trying to save 5 eggs, and now we're protecting children from across the galaxy. Do you ever regret it? The loss of privacy, the constant visitors?" "Never," Nari said firmly. "My children are growing up in a world where cooperation between species is normal. They don't see humans as different from dragons, or dragons as different from Centauri. To them, we're all just family." As they watched the children play, Sujin approached with a communication device. "Director Daewon, we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to establish a permanent embassy here. Tell them we'll consider it," Daewon replied. "But make it clear that our primary mission is protecting children, not politics." "Understood." "Also, the Earth government wants to send a delegation. They're calling you heroes." Kong Ho shook his head. "We're not heroes. We're just people who did what needed to be done." "That's exactly what makes you heroes," said a new voice. They turned to see Mira approaching with a group of young refugees who had just arrived from the Kepler system. These children traveled across the galaxy because they heard there was a place where humans and dragons worked together to keep everyone safe. "The sanctuary is becoming a symbol," Yuna observed, joining the group. "Species that have been enemies for centuries are sending their children here to learn cooperation." "It's working," Nari said with satisfaction. "The galaxy is changing." As the sun set over Acheron, the various species began their evening routines. The dragons sang their traditional lullabies, harmonizing with the crystal formations. The humans told bedtime stories to children of all species. The Centauri performed their light dances, while the Andorians shared their ancient wisdom songs. "What happens next?" June asked, watching the peaceful scene. "We keep doing what we've always done," Kong Ho replied. "We protect the children. We teach them to protect each other. And we hope that when they grow up, they'll build a better galaxy than the one we inherited." "The human protocol is spreading," Myra added. 12 other worlds have established their own sanctuaries based on our model. The idea is taking root." "Good," Nari said. "But the real test will come when these children become adults. Will they remember what they learned here?" Zifin answered. To her question, Hope and her playmates flew over to them. The little dragon landed gracefully and looked up at the adults with bright, intelligent eyes. "Mama Nari," she said, in perfectly clear human speech, "when I grow up, I want to be a guardian." 2. "I want to protect all the children, just like you and the humans protected me. And I want to help," added one of the human children. "We can work together, just like our parents do." The other children nodded eagerly, a mixture of species all united in their desire to continue the work of protection and cooperation. "There's your answer, Kung," Ho said softly to Nari. "The next generation already understands what we're trying to build." As the stars came out over Acheron, the sanctuary settled into peaceful evening rhythms. In the crystal caves, dragon eggs from other worlds waited to hatch under Nari's protection. In the habitat domes, refugee families slept safely for the first time in years. And in the children's quarter, young beings from across the galaxy dreamed of a future where cooperation was stronger than conflict. The dragon had been powerless to guard her little ones until surprising saviors had arrived. Now, those same saviors were raising a generation that would guard the entire galaxy's children. The human protocol had become more than law. It had become hope, and in the vast darkness of space, that hope was spreading from world to world, carried by children who had learned that the greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the willingness to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.